Nice to see everyone.
It's great to see people. It's wonderful.
Well, maybe in the interest of time, I'll start. So first of all, I'd like to welcome our guests from across the border. I don't know which border, but so first of all, Amati Turner Tarver, Judith Katz, Fred Miller, and Tara Whittle. And to all of you who've joined us on this webinar, thank you so much for taking the time from your lives to share this moment with us. So a quick note to let you know that this isn't the only opportunity that you'll have to spend time with Judith and Fred, that they'll be back in person, July 9th through the 14th, 2023, for 2 amazing immersive experiences, developing the organizational and personal self, and the human interaction laboratory. So please check those out on our website. We'll be mentioning more about them as we go forward. Let me say a few words about Judith. So Judith Katz, following a career in academia, Judith joined the Khalil Jameson Consulting Group in 1985, where she currently serves as Executive Vice President. She's distinguished herself as a thought leader, practitioner, educator, and strategist for more than 40 years. And for someone who reportedly is retired, I don't think so. Judith wrote some groundbreaking works in organization development and other fields. Her landmark book, White Awareness, the Handbook for Anti-Racism Training, get the date, 1978, was the first systematic training program to address racism from a white perspective. Her courageous autobiographical work, No Fairy Godmothers, No Magic Wands, The Healing Process After Rape, 1984, was among the first to assist rape survivors in the recovery process. In the field of inclusion, she and Fred Miller are renowned for their foundational framework, Inclusion as the How, which they use in their work with clients. And she's also the co-creator of the covert process concept and lab, which many of you know about, with Bob Marshak. Colleagues and clients alike sing her praises of generosity, humility, approachability, her sense of humor, and her resolute commitment to partnering with all people so they can step fully into their own power. And a few words about Fred. So Fred is the CEO and lead strategist of the Khalil Jameson Consulting Group, which was named one of Consulting Magazine's 7 Small Jewels. He's a pioneering change agent and thought leader in the field of organization development. He is cited as a forerunner of corporate change in the classic work, which I know many of you have read, The Age of Heretics. Fred has way too many awards to be cited in such a brief introduction. He's the author of more than 100 professional journal articles. And with Judith, he has co-authored the following books. So I'll take them from the beginning. The Inclusion Breakthrough, Unleashing the Real Power of Diversity, 2002. Be Big, Step Up, Step Out, Be Bold, 2008. Opening Doors to Teamwork and Collaboration, 4 Keys That Change Everything, 2013. Safe Enough to Soar, Accelerating Trust, Inclusion, and Collaboration in the Workplace, 2018. And I got it, Change Champions.
Yay!
2022. So I want to read a little piece, and I know that I've done this before. Thank you for showing that, Judith. And this was written on that fateful day, May 25th, 2020. A note from Fred Miller. When I can't take another step I think of the power of us. Someone handcuffs you and puts their knee on your throat and you die. Someone thinks your apartment is their apartment and kills you, is driving their car and is stopped and killed, is playing with a toy gun and is killed, is jogging in the middle of the street unarmed and is killed. I am so tired. When I'm tired, when I've said the same statement to another client that I've said hundreds of times in my 48 years of doing this work, when I miss my family and friends, when I wonder, does it really matter? Do I really matter? Does anyone really care? When I look at TV and see the underbelly of the United States and other places around the world, when I feel like an old black man trying to swim up Niagara Falls, when I just feel like an old man, when I think I can't take another step, I think of you. I think of all the people Judith and I have met and worked with through the years, people who care, people who want to make a difference, who are making a difference. And that thought, that very thought, that one thought gives me strength, courage, a vision, a feeling of love. Thank you, Fred Miller. And thank you all for coming, and I'd like to turn it over to Judith and Fred, Tara, and Amadi. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Marilyn. Hi, thank you, Jim. Thank you, ma'am. My computer's acting up a little bit. I don't know what's going on.
It's just you, Fred.
I know. I know. Amadi, I might need to come and join you over in the room. I think I better go do that.
All right, so Fred's leaving us. There you go.
But you'll be back.
Oh, I'm here. Yeah, thank you for reading that, Jim. That's particularly today with Tyree Nichols's funeral.
Yes,
That seems
indeed,
even more
indeed. Yeah, I was
important
just, yeah, I was-
and powerful to hear. That's what Fred wrote a number of years ago, and unfortunately, we're still in that
Unfortunately,
space, at
still-
least in the United States.
Indeed.
So,
So
okay,
thank you,
Fred.
Jim. Thank you, Jim. I'll share the screen with Amadi here. That touches me, and again, another one going on today. The funeral, as Judith just said, it just reinforces to me that the world needs all of us, because the world needs to change. And clearly, there are a lot of good things in the world, and I want to appreciate them, and lots and lots and lots of good people. I mean, we're working closely with, we live and work in Troy, New York, across the river from Albany, New York, and we're working with the local police department. They're a good police department. But if you look at television and hear what's going on in television, you think all police are bad. But we all know any group is not bad. And we know that all of any group's probably not good. So it's a challenge. And it's the differentiation of being able to say, this person maybe shouldn't be here or shouldn't do that. And this person is part of the group that's helping us move forward is critical. And it's one of the reasons that I love doing organization development and organizational change, is because it allows us to be with kindred spirits like you on this Zoom with us, get renewed, and then go out in the world. And the world, I'm in Albany, New York right now, so I think out in the world it's like 5 degrees. So the world's not always warm and friendly and fuzzy. So thank y'all for being here. Really appreciate it a lot. And there's work that we need to do. The world needs us. The world needs change. I say us, I mean all of us, and everybody that we know that's involved in making this world a better place. Again, Fred Miller, Clue James Consulting Group. I'll say more about the firm in a minute. I would just say that it's been an honor and privilege to work with Jim and with Marilyn, and to be thinking about doing this lab. We'll talk a little bit more about coming up in a few more months. It's going to be fun. I hope you come. And what else about me? I've been doing this work. Oh my goodness. I started doing this work in '72 when I was starting in a corporation called Connecticut General, now called Cigna. And we started doing workshops on Black, white, and women, men in 72. And so I've been in this work a long, long time. I describe myself as a dinosaur, but I can still dance. So it's been a good run. I'm not done yet. And I really feel like, in fact, now we probably have the greatest chance for change that I've seen in my lifetime. Because everything, Judith and I are writing several articles, but one talks about paradigms and Joel Barker. And he says, when a paradigm change, we go back to zero. And we modify it slightly. It says, when a paradigm change, we go forward to zero. We're going forward to zero. We're going to some new space, some new territories. I don't have a client that can stay the way they are. Now, in the olden days, 4 years ago, they thought they could stay where they are and just maintain what is. If anybody maintains what is now, they're going to lose. They're going to fall behind. Anyhow, I'm glad to be here and glad to be able to share some thoughts with you all today. Judith.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'll make it short because we want to share with you. It's wonderful to see faces and names that I know and to meet those of you who are new here. Thank you for joining us this evening. I live in Washington, D.C. And as Jim said, I am sort of semi-retired, which means I get to do what I want to do. And I work on the work I want to work on, which is a really nice thing. And the nice thing is not having Sunday night deliverables, where I'm feeling like that, oh my God, what do I have to do this week and all the places I need to go. So that part of life is good. And just to be able to continue to partner with Fred and the firm on ideas and things that we have. And as we said, we're hoping that you also had a life we want to have, which I feel very to Tara to just do a quick intro. Or Tara, I guess.
I guess I'll talk real quick. Tara Whittle, I'm a member of the Khalil Jameson Consulting Group, Vice President of Strategy. I'm a co-owner of the firm, been with the firm 23 years. And, just glad to be here and glad to, I'm excited to hear what, I haven't gotten to see Judith in action in a while since she's been retired. So I'm excited about that.
Okay, Amadi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amadi Turner-Carver. I've been working with KJCG for about 3 years now as a client partner. And what's funny is I went to school for fashion, and now I'm in the OD world working with Judith and Fred on these wonderful presentations. And it's really been fulfilling and just really great work. And I'm happy to be here with you tonight.
Great. Okay. All right. So let's get to it. So this session's about being big. Fred and I wrote one of our books, which is Be Big. And one of the things I'd like to do just to start us with, and I'll talk a little bit about, we wrote this book, as Jim said, in 2008. And what we were finding was, obviously, when organizations and we're doing transformational work, one of the challenges is how do we as individuals show up? And how do we create teams that really enable us to be big and to really bring our full selves and do our best work together? And so we wrote this book, and it's called Be Big, Step Up, Step Out, Be Bold, Daring to Do Our Best Work Together. And I found this quote by which I'll read in a moment, from William Danforth, who is the founder of the Ralston Purina Company. And this is what he wrote, and this was written in 1931. I am daring you to think bigger, to act bigger, and to be bigger. I dare you to think creatively. I dare you to lead and inspire others. I dare you to build character. I dare you to share. And if you do, I am promising you a richer life and more exciting life. And I'm just struck by, a CEO in 1931. These issues have been with us for a long, long time. And I just wanted to read one more thing from the intro about organizations need us to bring more of ourselves to work. Many of us know a secret that is rarely spoken. Too many of us in most organizations are hiding things, important things. We are hiding our full selves. Sometimes we just hide parts of ourselves. Sometimes we hide all of ourselves. By not letting our full selves be seen, we make ourselves small. Yet within us, there's often another secret, an even bigger secret. Many of us have a strong desire to be big, to give our best every day, to not hide out or be small. To be big is not about ego or fame. It's not about showing up or showing off. Many of us want to be big in order to bring our voice and add great value, and to enable our coworkers and partners to do the same. To be big is a life stance of learning and growing and partnering with others. And so tonight, what we're going to talk about is, how do we show up big or small? How do we see other people as small or big? And how do we really create teams that are going to enable us all to bring our biggest selves? And so we're going to do that. I'll do an overview in a moment, but with some small groups and some discussion and some polls, and really getting for us to all think about, how do we bring our biggest selves in order to have the life that we want and to help organizations do their best work. So I will now move it to our next slide. Okay,
We're in the office here because it's the third computer I'm trying. So it's helpful. There's some advantages of being in the office. So who we are, I'll just say a little bit about this and do it quickly. We're the oldest OD firm, and we're the oldest firm that's been involved in inclusion and diversity. We early on started using the term diversity. We didn't coin that phrase, but we're the first ones to start using the word inclusion, probably around 1992, somewhere around there. But we're a management consulting firm that uses organization development technology to bring about large total system change and create inclusive cultures that accelerate results. We're OD consultants all the way. Jim may have said this in the beginning, but Judith and I both have the Lifetime Achievement Award from the OD Network. Firm was started in 1970 by Khalil Jameson, since deceased. I joined her in 79 after working internally for a while. And then Khalil died in 85 and Judith joined me. And we've been giving leadership to the firm since then, until she did a boomer retirement a few years ago, which she's already explained what that is, which is why she's here right now. Judith wrote one of the first books around white awareness ever. It's still in print, called White Awareness. Leah wrote a book called The Nibble Theory. She was one of the first women organization consultants. And so when she would go into a client and say hi to them, the first question they would ask her is, are you married? And the second question would be, do you have children? And then they would go, who's home with your children? So back in the olden days, a woman out with children, who were out in the road and had children, was actually seen as a bad mom. And so she had to go through all that. And if you know Pac-Man taking little bites out of you, that's what the nibble theory is about, is how people are taking bites out of her, and then what she needed to do to deal with the nibbles and actually create a kernel of power. We wrote one of the first books about, we didn't coin the phrase, but we wrote one of the first books about diversity in 94, inclusion in 2002. That was the first book written about inclusion. We went to our author and said, we're gonna write a book about inclusion. He says, nobody knows what inclusion is. Why would you write a book about it? Said, that's why we're writing a book about it. And then we've written books since then, Be Big, Opening Doors, Safe Enough to Soar, and our latest book that came out in January, Change Champions, which really talks about a total system change process using internal people to bring about new narrative and bring about a culture change. Next slide. So Jim's talked a little bit about this already. I'll say a word and then I'll let Tara say a word. I am excited that we're going to be offering these labs. We tried to offer them last year and COVID said, no, 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 not this year. So this year we are moving forward with it. I'm hoping that all of you will come, but many of you will come and attend. A Human Interaction Action Lab, is founded by NTL, National Training Labs initially, but been offered here several times at Concordia. And it's a great lab for people to learn and grow and really learn a lot about group process and how you are in a group. And then the DOPS lab is a lab that I invented in somewhere around, 85. And it's really about looking at self and growing and developing self and looking at our boundaries and looking at how we want to be seen in the world and how we can be effective in the world So it's much more of an intrapersonal lab that allows us to explore activities that allow you to share what you're learning about yourself there. It's a great lab, even if I did invent it myself. It is fun, and we have a good time, and we laugh, and people learn, and been doing it for years, and it's been very, very helpful to people. Carol, you want to add a word?
Sure. So what makes this week in July really special is that these labs are happening at the same time, which means that instead of going to the foundational experience in HI, which is a T group or training group based group interaction workshop that lets you explore, as Fred said, how you show up in groups, how you interact with people, and really learn from the feedback and the input of others, so that you can show up the way that you want and have more flexibility and control over how people experience you in a group. So you've got that foundational experience, and then you've got the more advanced personal and professional growth experience of DOPS. Those are happening at the same time, which means we're going to have opportunities to bring both groups together for plenary sessions, having access to both staffs of those workshops. So it's just a phenomenal learning and development experience that we're super excited for, and hoping that, you know, COVID doesn't once again, every time we think we got it licked, you know, as the COVID rears its ugly head in new ways. So I think Amadi, if Amadi has her computer back from Fred, she's going to pop a link in the chat for registration. These labs are pretty competitively priced. They're happening in beautiful Montreal, where Jim and Marilyn are. I mean, it'll be beautiful in July. It's probably pretty cold right now. But, you know, we're excited about it. We're hoping that we see some of you there, and there's contact information on the slide deck. You can get in touch with us if you have any questions about the content, who should go. If you go to the Concordia website that Amadi's going to link, it's got information about who these labs are appropriate for, what the learning goals are, some things to consider. And like Fred said, we're excited, and we hope that you'll mark your calendar and consider joining us.
Thanks, Tara.
So we
Okay.
want to start. I'm sorry, Judith, go ahead.
I was going to say, and just as a testament, DOPS changed my life. So I can just, if you want to hear about that, it changed my life. So I went as a participant, and it set Fred on a whole trajectory about growing a firm, but that's another story for another day. Okay, let's move us to the next slide, please. And just what we're going to be doing. So we're going to start with some connecting. And then I'm going to kind of walk us through Be Big in terms of me, you, and we. And in between, we're going to do some polls, and we're going to have some small group discussions. So we're going to engage the community. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some takeaways in terms of some of the things that we think really support both individually and pairs and teams to really grow ourselves to be big. So that's where we're headed to tonight. Okay.
One, as we've said, you know, one of the reputations we have is around inclusion, and not only coining the word, but also that's a major part of what we're doing. If you talk about organization today, you want organizations to be high performing, you got to have an inclusive organization. The only way it's going to work. And the generations coming into organization, as well as some there, expect to be included, expect to be a part of it. I remember many years ago, now probably about 50 or so, I was bringing in some younger people into the firm. And I was talking to one of the young people coming to the firm, and I was excited. He was excited. And he said, so how often am I going to see you? You're the CEO. How often am I going to see you? And I said, oh, you know, probably every couple of weeks, or, you know, 3 weeks or so. He said, oh, no, I want to see you every day. I said, what? Every day? That's not a paradigm I had in my life about how you interact with leaders at that time. But that was what he wanted. That's what he needed. We compromised around that. But we interact a lot. And then I realized what people want is to have interactions with each other, and they want to have the interactions with people who are giving leadership and direction in the organization. So hellos become important. Hellos become part of greeting people, saying they're okay. We had a consultant who was at a major client, walked down the hall. The consultant looks fine. He's okay. He's a nice guy. Walked down the hall, past 15 people before somebody would say hello. One of the things is we did work with United Airlines before they did a merger a few years ago. And we were working with Glenn Tilden, the CEO at the time. He says, Fred, you know what I need? I said, what do you need in the organization? He said, I need a community of effort. I love that. That's what an organization is. It's a community effort in service of the mission, vision, and strategy of the organization. And so creating a community, people together, linked together. They don't have to be co-located. I think periodically they probably need to see each other person to person in the flesh, but they don't need to be co-located. But how do you create an organization to a community? Well, community's got to start with hellos. And if we were co-located right now, we'd be having people go around say hello to one another. We do that all the time with all our clients. I don't care who they are, where they are, or when they are. We start with hellos because that starts people connecting. That starts people seeing the other person. In some native cultures, you know, hello is I see you. People want to be seen. Even that hermit in the corner wants to be seen. So how do we make sure that people are connected with one another? It also breaks the ice. It also lets people begin to feel like they're present and see in a room. And they know that if they're going to be there, they're going to be asked to participate, not just sit in the sideline. So creating a community effort, doing that, and one of the things that we like, the next slide, one of the things that we would like you all to do is get a chance to say hello to each other. We'd like you to, we're gonna put you in small groups, just for 5 minutes or so, not much longer, and have you say your name, your organization, one way you are being big or want to be big. Wes, that's the real punchline of the 3 questions. What's one way you are currently being big in your life, or big in your organization, or big in a client that you're working with? Or you want to be big, that you're not as big as you want to be and want to be big. Again, big is not, as Judith read it, not kicking sand in somebody's face. Big is being your full self, bringing all of you to the situation, having your power available to you, and interacting with people in ways that respect them and allow for the greatest possible interaction. So we're going to put you in groups, Amadi. We're about ready for that. When you come back, we're going to ask you to put your answers to number 3 in chat, just so that we can hear what you're saying about you being big. We're going to do 5 minutes and then come back. So I think you're going to be whisked away in a second or two. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. So if you in chat could put your answers to question number 3, that would be great. So if you could put in chat your answers to number 3, that would be great. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. You can put your answers to number 3 in chat. Welcome back. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So hellos are critical, and people making that initial connection is critical. And if we're going to build community, we need to be connected with one another. And if they're in the room and they're involved, we need to be able to connect and engage. We need the wisdom of the group. We need the wisdom of everybody in the room. If we don't want their wisdom, we don't want their voice, then why are they there? So it's important to engage people. So if you could put your responses to number 3 in chat, that'd be great. And I'm going to keep moving because the clock is ticking. Marty, can we go to the next slide? So I was doing some work in UK, and one of the we were doing a series of workshops with them, and we were having a meeting of a group. And one of the people came into the room and said, you know, last night I really had to stay really late here at work. And somebody else said, you know, if I had known that, I could have helped you. And I realized that in most organizations, when somebody's got a challenge or a struggle or needs help, they talk to the person next to them. Now would be the person you see on Zoom or whatever. But the whole team doesn't know. But for a high-performing team, everybody should know if somebody has a challenge or an opportunity or a struggle. And so I started thinking about teams and how we can make teams higher performing. And so I came up with this thought about person on earth. That is that many groups sometimes, especially in manufacturing, will do a morning huddle, and they'll come together in the morning and they'll talk about what happened on the last shift, what we need to do on this shift. So at a huddle or just a time when the group comes together, talk about how are you as a person on earth? If you did a systems check of this entity and the scale was 0, not well at all, and 10, very well, where would you be on that scale of 0 to 10? And so we ask groups every time to do how are you as a person on earth, and then go around the group and have people give their number. Sometimes we'll ask people to say something about their number. Sometimes we'll ask people with low numbers to say a little bit what's going on, or people with high numbers to talk about it. We always clap when somebody has a 10. This does a lot of things. One is it gets everybody's voice in the room. And you'll hear that theme over and over again with us, getting everybody's voice in as part of what inclusion is. Two is it lets the team members know what's going on with the person, and the person has a chance to express it. Now, it could be personal, and it could be home, and they don't want to share it, and they can just say, it's something outside of work that's bothering me. But it lets the team know that you are sharing with them what's going on with you, so that we all have all parts of the puzzle that's going to make us be good. And it lets people know that the team members care about you. And as a team member, it lets me know, oh, you had to work late last night. Oh, you got to take your car to change the oil, which is what I have to do in a company. Oh, I can help you with that and bring you back to the office, whatever that may be. Or we just had a thing. Tara had a death in her family, and she talked about what that was like for her and what was going on. We created a place where people, it's almost like we created this place for people that they could share what they need to share about who they are and what they are in that moment in time, that allows them to be whole, say what's going on, but more importantly, for the team to partner with them and be with them. So a person on earth is an opportunity to give a number, and we're not going to do it here, but normally people would say a little bit about what that number's about, some of the time, not all the time. So if we go to the scale, so we're going to ask you, how are you as a person on earth? Again, it's a system check. 0's low, 10's high. Amadi, you want to talk about how they can do that?
Yes. So if you don't know how to annotate on Zoom, if you look up and see where it says you are viewing Amadi Turner Tarver's screen, and then go over to where it says view options, there should be an annotate button, and then a toolbar comes up where you could pick a stamp, and you can stamp anywhere on the screen where you are as a person. So I put one at 7, the star. If you need me to go over that again, let me know. Or if you're unable to access annotate from your device, just put your number in the chat or send it to me and I can plot it for you.
Say the instruction again, Amadi, real quick.
So the instruction is, if you look up where it says you are viewing Amadi Turner Tarver's screen, and then to the right, there should be a view options option, and then you go down to annotate, and then a toolbar comes up. And then you go over like 4 or 5 over to stamp and click a stamp, and then stamp it right on the screen and it should pop up.
Wow, I love this. I also love people picking hearts. It's heartwarming. So, so we got one person at a 10, yay, yay, yay. We got several people around 9, 8. Yeah, get them in there, yes. 7, and we got a few people at 6, some 5, some 4s. And if we were working with a team and we had this kind of distribution, we probably would say, okay, the 10, tell us a little bit about what's going on and what's happening. And how about if you're a 5 or a 4, if you're wanting to and okay with, let's hear your number. But people find this extremely helpful and lets people get a good sense of what's going on. And, you know, maybe I say to somebody at work or during the course of the day or in Zoom, you know, what was your number today? I've had clients, I'm just calling them up in normal world, and they'll say, Fred, what's your number today? I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay, yes, here's my number. So it's a good way to get a barometer. I say to clients all the time, if we did this and the whole team was like 3, 4, 5, I would say, let's just sit down and talk about what's going on. Let's talk about it. Because there's no point in us trying to do high performing work if everybody's a 3, 4, and 5 today. So let's talk about it. Let's talk it out and see what we need to know and understand. So it's a good way to do a quick check. It's taking longer now because I'm talking a lot. But it's a good way to do a good check of where are we as we start today. In the office here in Troy, which is where I am, we're in the office on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we do it every day at 10 o'clock. We do a huddle, and we do a person on earth, and we do what major project you're working on, where do you need assistance for the day, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a good way, and people like it. So I'm going to keep us moving, and that's a gift that you can feel free to use. Judith.
Great. Yeah. So I was reading in the chat some of your responses to how you're showing up big and one of the ways where you want to be bigger. And I love the comments about speaking our truth, getting others involved, taking my seat at the table, bringing people together, expanding that out to the world, being enthusiastic about what I do. Those are all wonderful. And we're going to talk some more about that. This is a quote. One of the CEOs we work with, Hal Yo, who is the CEO of a family-owned business, third generation family-owned business, $3 billion company in Philadelphia. One of the things he was telling Fred and I a story about was one of his leaders who was expecting a huge bonus because his business had grown tremendously over the last year. And Hal did not give him the bonus that he thought he was going to get, because he said that first you've got to grow yourself, then you've got to grow your team, then you grow your business. And his concern was focusing on the business and its growth wasn't going to create the sustainability that he needed, because he wasn't growing himself and he wasn't growing his team members. So it was kind of a short-lived process. And we have loved this notion about growing yourself, then growing your team and growing your business, and wanted to just share that in terms of being big. It's like we have to begin with ourselves, and we have to start really thinking about how much are we developing into the leader or the person we need to be in order to be able to really to grow our enterprises or to grow our engagement with others. And so what I'd like you to do just for a moment, and I think we'll go to the next slide, is I'm just going to ask you to think about, where do you spend most of your time? Again, in the chat, are you growing yourself? Are you spending your energy and time mostly growing your team? And are you growing your business or your enterprise? And again, that may be your consulting, it may be the organization of which you're a part. Lori's already responded. You're trying to do it all, I think. So let's see. Oh, okay. So let's see what you come up with. I'd love to hear just kind of a few comments in the chat about where are you spending your time? Where's your focus at this point in your life and your career? And again, this may be balance of 1 and 3. Thanks, Antonio. Growing your team, growing myself. Thanks, Veronique. Growing myself equals growing my business. Great. Growing myself so that later I can grow the team and the organization. Yep. Good. Myself in the business. Self, Walter. Hi, Walter. Gabor, self and team. Okay. Growing myself after much work, planting seeds for my business. Self and team. Okay. So I love it. Growing myself, and there was one growing myself in friends, I think. So as we think about this, I mean, I think one of the big challenges is sometimes we leave ourselves out of the equation. And I'm glad to see that, I guess, as OD people and as people involved in change, obviously we are the instrument, right? We can't make change unless we're clear about who we are and growing ourselves as part of that change. Okay, so that's one of the things I just wanted to kind of spend a moment with about Hal. And let's go to the next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about being big. And I'm going to just kind of, this is like a snapshot of what the book has taught us about. So being big, at times, life has taught many of us how to be small by not having dreams that are too ambitious, not acting too bold, not reaching too high, not standing out too much. One of the things that Khalil used to talk about is that nibbles, is that when you've been told you're too much, the 2 word TOO often means how we make ourselves small. And at times, I think we're not even aware of how we may be our small selves. We may not even be aware of how we stay comfortable. Sometimes we're fearful that others may not like us, or that we might want to avoid conflict because we're fearful that, you know, somehow it'll erode the relationship. So there's a lot of ways in which, even as we think we're being big, we may be limiting ourselves in ways that are not enabling us to be our full selves. But the question becomes then how we stay ourselves, keep ourselves small. And I think let's go to the next slide. So some of the ways I may stay small is that I stay in my comfort zone, or I stay invisible. I don't want to take up too much space. I stay silent. I don't bring my voice. I don't speak up. And I think at times believing I don't matter or what I have to say doesn't matter. Lori's just made a comment about the imposter syndrome. Absolutely. And there's a lot about people feeling like, oh my God, maybe they'll find out the truth about who I really am, right? And being worthy. I mean, I think for many of us, as I know as a woman, for me, for many years, I didn't believe that I was, that I was worthy, or that my success was really what my success was due to. So there are a lot of ways in which we trap ourselves in being small, which is a challenge, I think, about our growth and our development. And Walter just said small equals safe, right? If I want to keep myself safe, and many of us are fearful these days, particularly in organizations, or feeling like we're in a context where we can't be our biggest self. But the challenge is, how do we be a big me? And so if we go to the next slide, it really means being willing to step up, right? So I will dream big. One of the things that I remember years ago, Fred, I was going to work on a book, which I still never finished, about oppression and opportunity and how they stood side by side. And I remember saying to somebody, I can't do this. Fred won't let me, but I had never asked him. So sometimes we are so fearful or imagine what the other person's going to say without even having the conversation, because we imagine. So can I dream big enough? Am I willing to put myself out there? Am I willing to show up fully and be seen and be heard? Do I believe that my voice matters? Am I willing to step up, to step out and really take those bold stance? And am I really dedicated to a life and a growth and being big, believing I'm worthy and willing to take some risks? So we're going to spend a few minutes and just ask you to do, again, we're going to do an annotation that Amadi and Fred will walk us through about thinking about yourself and how are you showing up. So Fred, I'm going to leave it to you right now.
As an individual, to what extent are you showing up big at work? We'd like to use a star for that. And then at home, use a check for that. So if you could annotate, that would be great. And Amadi, if you just say it again, please.
Of course. So if you look up at your screen where it says you're viewing Amadi Turner Tarver's screen, there should be an option to the right that says view options. And then you go down and click annotate, and a toolbar shows up. And on that toolbar, you click stamp, and then under stamp, there should be two options, an option for a star and an option for a check.
Wow, nice. Thank you for doing this. I did this with a group recently, and them showing up big was stronger at work than at home. And I was a little struck by that I had to think about it some more. And so, yeah, it depends on your birth order, depends on what home looks like. There's a lot of factors around the home stuff. But I think, it's worth thinking about how come I'm not showing up both places big, and what's resulting in me not being my full self and my quote unquote big self at those places. And, I know they keep saying on TV, job market is really getting tighter. I know a lot of people looking for employees. So I don't know if you're showing up big at work as a zero, it might be an opportunity to think about where else do I want to spend my life and how do I want to spend my life energy, which is always the question, right? How do I want to spend my life energy? And I might say work is just a check the box and I'm going to live somewhere else. Or I might say checking the box at work is just not enough for me. And the big question obviously is, how are they treating you? You may or may feel like you can be big, but are they treating you with all the respect that you like? So again, 8, 9, and 10 for us is goodness. 7 on the borderline. Less than that, it's just opportunity to be more. Thank you for doing that. Incredible card.
And I'm curious, obviously we can't tell here about for individuals, what's the difference between the home and the work, right? Because we have a lot in the same, it's whether some of those 9s may also be a 3. But I think the thing that we see here is that for a lot of people at work, there's a lower number than for many at home. And so I think the challenge for all of us is, what's that delta? And are we different people? Sometimes like speaking up in one or the other place may be a challenge because of the context or because of the issues that are going on. So I think how are we showing up, and are we having, one of the nice things we do in DOPS is talk about how you're leading your life. and thinking about the areas in which, all the different ways in which, just like we lead an organization, how are we leading our life, not just at work, at home, but how are we leading our life in our psychological space, in our physical space, in our mental health, in our spiritual health. And so really thinking about all of the ways in which our life is full, and are we taking that same leadership in all of the dimensions? So that was a great exercise.
Yeah,
that we do.
I thought, I wouldn't do it, the home part with our clients necessarily. But I might experiment with this with one of my clients and say, how are people showing up big at work? And let's do 0 to 10 and see what it is.
Right.
Because I think some clients would not like to see a lot of their people saying they're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and showing up big at work. And they might not know, the leader may not know that they're not getting everything from somebody, maybe because of something they're doing, or because of some place the person is, or the circumstances. But at least knowing that there's more they have there, and you have some responsibility who's in the environment to unleash that, if you want to have all or the best for that person. I think a lot of leaders would want to know. I surely would.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go to you. So I think one of the things when we were writing Be Big that I really loved was the question about how do we see other people? And many of us are aware for ourselves and experience, how we may be diminished by others. I'm always by circumstance, by personal history, or by the system. Some of us may be aware of how we diminish ourselves, but often we don't pay attention to how we are diminishing others, or maybe limiting others. And I'll never forget, Fred and I were doing a workshop for GE Capital years ago. And I remember one of the leaders bemoaning the fact that he couldn't get into a certain country club. And it was clear that, remember that, Fred? And it was clear that he was focusing on, upward. He was looking above him in terms of what he couldn't do, but he wasn't looking at what he was doing to his subordinates. And a lot of times I think we might see and feel diminished by what others are doing to us, but we're not looking at our own behaviors in terms of what we're doing to other people. So how do our assumptions, our judgments, our biases, our blinders keep us from really seeing the other person and who they are? How does our blindness keep me from seeing and hearing what's important to you? And so that, to me, this is one of the places where I think it's such an important pivot point, because so often we get, hooked into kind of who we like or don't like, and the ways in which our judging behavior may be making assumptions about other people, or our biases, or all the ways in which we may be insensitive to other cultures and other ways of being. And so some of the ways that we see and keep other people small, the next slide, is I put you in a box. I think I know who you are. I've met people like you, or I know what you are. I know what your background is, or whatever. So I make a lot of assumptions and put you in a certain kind of box. I make you invisible. I don't listen to you. I talk over you. I don't care about you. I don't want to invest any energy in you. I don't notice your abilities. And so, what I see is, we know Marcus Buckingham's work in terms of focusing on strengths, but there are times where we have individuals or people that we only see their inability. We only see what they can't do, not what they can do. And often we've been in one organization where they would tell people to basically not talk for 90 days. It's like, do it our way. And so we don't notice all the things you bring from another organization or another context. We don't see all your experiences. And I don't look for or appreciate your uniqueness. I might only see your difference, but I don't understand it. And so those are all the ways that I might keep somebody small. But how do we see somebody else as big? And so here's really taking off my blinders and really questioning and digging deep to look at what are the assumptions, working to see another point of view. Really, we've talked a lot, Fred and I have done a lot of work on judging and joining. And am I really joining you and seeing how we can partner? Seeing what you bring of value, seeing that you bring something that I might not have. I reach out and engage with you. And so I'm really learning and being open to that learning, and seeing what is it that you have and being curious about who you are. I see your upside. I really recognize the potential that people may bring. And I acknowledge others' contributions and really supporting other people in doing their best work. So how can I help you achieve your goals? So it means stepping out of my filters and my experience to really see the other person. And to us, this is really an important part. So we're going to again ask you, and I know there's a question in the chat or a provocation. How does being small or safe trade off on your calling and life's impact? This is a great question, Charles, but I'm not going to respond to this right now, but I'll think about it. So we'll come back to that. So Fred, I think, is going to move us through another annotation.
To what extent do you see others as big? I want to say as being big at work.
Mhm.
To what degree do you see others being big at work? So are others being big? I see a lot of people being big, and I think we're in a kind of a, I don't know if I had to do the culture of the organization, I would say we're at 8 or 9 or 10, or I don't see people being big at work and it's low, or I see people being small at work and maybe it's a 0, 1, 2, or 3. So do some calibration about the workplace or a consultant client you're working on or a client you've worked on in the past, and where would you say they operate around being big? And if you've seen others, are they at a 10? People are really being big in this organization, or they're at a 0? No way. People aren't big at all, and we're in between. So if you could annotate again, that would be great. Thanks so much for
again-
the question.
Of course. And again, if you need instructions on how to annotate, if you look at the top screen where it says you are viewing Amadi Turner Tarver's screen, and over there should be, to the right, there should be view options, and then under that, annotate. And a toolbar with a stamp option should come up, and you can use any stamp. Well, you can use a star, but we know that we're only plotting for work. So
Uh-huh.
Annotate doesn't come up.
Right, it's
Yeah,
not
it's
coming up.
coming up for some reason.
Mhm.
Marty.
So people putting their numbers in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, all of a sudden there is no annotate. Agreed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
One
it
second here.
disappeared.
Let's see. Let's
So
try
we've
that
got
again.
7s, 8s, 9s.
Annotates there now.
Uh-huh, good. All right. Let's get the numbers up.
Thank you.
Candace is like a 6 to a 9, depending on the organization, right? Yeah, 8s. Mm, 4, 5, 6.
Judith, I'm wondering if we just hear some voices.
Yeah, good. Go for it, Fred.
Okay. So not quite as strong on the 8, 9, and 10 as before, but it's pretty good. And there's some places that are not. We got a 2, got some 4s, 5s. So we've been talking a lot, and I know y'all talk some in your small groups, but let's just hear what's cooking for you. What are you thinking? What's up for you as you're thinking about being big or anything else that we've said? Let's just kind of have a community chat for a few minutes. So just unmute yourself and talk. That's the easiest way to do this. Somebody start us.
Jennifer had her hand up. Why don't you go, Jennifer? Go for it.
Well, first off, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and doing this. I really appreciate you guys. What
Thank
came
you.
up for me that was so interesting was right away when we were asked this question, I thought to myself immediately, I give my coworkers a 10. And what was interesting for me was I gave myself less.
Whoa.
So it makes me really reflect, even though I do know that I work pretty darn hard, but it was interesting that I gave people more and gave myself less. So I'm just like reflecting on those thoughts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for going first, Jennifer.
Is there a
Hello,
few
I'm
more-
Steve from Montreal,
Thanks,
and
Steve.
what amazes me is how we could so quickly bond, but it doesn't amaze me because anybody that Jim brings together brings a great group. And the world really needs us.
Amen.
Yeah, and that's all I have to say. I'll pass it over to
Thanks.
others, but thank you for doing what you do.
Thanks.
Mm,
Let's hear a few more voices. Thank you.
Tom Cornwell from Jacksonville, Florida.
Hi.
I'm excited to be here with all of you. And one of the ways that I'm practicing being big and learning more and more is listening, learning to listen. I've always been a person who is in a real big hurry to speak up. And now I'm in a space where not only am I learning to listen more, but I really enjoy it. The two of you that have already spoken up, when we were in our chat room, fantastic just to hear other voices, see other people in the work. And so thank you all. Thank you all for showing up and being big.
Hi, Tom. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Fred.
Let's hear from a few more people. What's up for you? What are you thinking around be big or anything else we've said? Quickly, just unmute and talk.
May I just come through? And
hear you.
I would like to stress the long time to keep up, to step up from time to time, to be persistent with that, to be consequent with that. And I love to be here too, because of those many decades I've seen you being there at that way. And it's what I see with others. If we step up consequently, that's a big value. Thank you.
Wow, right. I mean, I appreciate it. Thank you for that. This world needs us to be big. I mean, this world needs this. It needs us respectfully, respecting other people's boundaries. I mean, all those things. But it needs each one of us to bring what we can bring to try to move this human species forward. And I think now is just an incredible time and opportunity because we're in disarray, because we're in a moment of incredible change. There's nothing not changing. The family, the school, the community, the police, the politicians. I mean, everything is in transition, I think globally. And we have countries where they thought nobody would talk and they would all be quiet. And there's people are speaking up and demonstrating. Whoever thought there'd be demonstrations in Russia about a war that they're having. I mean, it's an incredible time. So I want to encourage us. And I just, one thing I promised myself a long time ago, that I make sure that periodically I spend time with kindred spirits. So being with y'all tonight is like, I want to inhale, even through the boxes, because we need each other and the world needs us. Let's hear a couple more comments and then we'll go continue. A couple more comments, thoughts, reflections.
I just found it interesting as today at work I had a run-in with this whole situation of either being small or being big, and I had a supervisor just come up and say, nobody listens to me anyways, so it doesn't matter what I'm going to say. And I was just like, there was almost that expectation, right, as someone in a place of, say, higher power than the working line, saying that she is not heard and she has no say and it doesn't matter what suggestion she had. And I just sat there as a newly introduced rep in HR kind of going, but what do you mean? and why is it that you're not vocalizing? And she just said, well, nobody listens. And just now thinking about everything that we're talking about, I was like, I mean, I heard her and that kind of threw me aback. But I didn't know how to reach her either. Like, I didn't know what to say. Would it, well, as someone in HR, your job is to kind of, I was blown aback and I did not know, first of all, why she was feeling that way. Because obviously it's a recurrent, or it's been going on for years, perhaps. And I'm hearing of it now. Has she expressed it to others? I don't know. And what do I do? What's my next step? So like, I mean, I do want to address her. I do want people to shine and grow. And I, I was sort of vocal about that. Yes, I'm going to fight with you. If we need an army, I will help you lead it. But I feel like there's more I could have done. And I think that's the part for many that is missing. It's one thing to be aware and to acknowledge. It's the, what do I do next? Where sometimes, caught off guard, what do we do?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. So next you can say, I was on a webinar last night. They talked about this book, Be Big. And I'm going to give you the book and you're going to read it. And then we're going to talk and see if there's ways we can be bigger in this organization. Because I want to partner with you because I appreciate you and value you. And I don't want us smothering ourselves here.
Guaranteed, no, that is for sure. The webinar will be out.
Okay, I think we're going to move unless somebody's got something hot they want to say right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing, Fred. Big kind of comes in a lot of flavors, and it depends on how people are interpreting it, right? So there's part of me that says there's big in your own personal development, and then there's big around understanding what that is relative to the culture that you're in. Because big could be performance, and big could be competitive. Big could be a lot of things that don't necessarily lend itself to growing the overall organizational culture, right? So I don't know. I just think that there's lots of components to big. You could almost put a four-way matrix around it. You know.
I love that. Draw that diagram and send it to us, and we'll give you credit as we talk about it.
Okay.
I also think we got to be careful that we don't trick ourselves. That it's easy for me to be in situations where I make myself small and I do an assessment and I like small is the way I should be here. And sometimes that's absolutely true. And sometimes that's me being more careful than I need to be. And I think being able to look at situations and try to judge, when do I need to be big and when is this not a safe place to be big? Or when this is not the timing to be big? I think it's from agreeing with you and saying I have to do that second check on myself. Because sometimes it's just easier to be small, but that doesn't mean I help the collective. And it also probably means that doesn't help me. We're going to move. Thank you for those questions and the comments. Really appreciate it. Judith?
I think we're moving to small groups. So Amadi, so Fred.
I think we should go to we.
Oh, all right. Okay. We can go to we. I'm easy. What the hell? So the final place, and I love these comments in this conversation, is, you know, there's one thing about seeing another person as big, and but the challenge is really about creating high-performing teams and really enabling those teams to soar. And so, you know, it's one thing to be able to bring our fullest selves, and it's one thing to be able to see what other individuals bring. But it's even more challenging to dare to be big together. And I think the one thing that I think is even more true with the pandemic and with virtual and people being more isolated, for those of us who've been working on Zoom a lot, is that whole thing about that sense of teamness, you can feel some of virtually, but I think we've lost some in many organizations, that real sense of connection. And so how do we create a really big we, and where people are not feeling like I don't want to share, or it's safer for me to stay small, or, you know, I'm not really sure about these other team members, I can do it myself, all of those things. And so the ways in which we keep ourselves small, next slide, please, is really that belief I can do it alone, that it's faster, you know, I can get it done, I have the answers, I really don't need other people, maybe I can just check in with them, but I don't really need a we. It takes too much time, you know, all of that. I can do it alone. I protect my position. I think people may be still fearful in many organizations about their ability to succeed and see it as competitiveness. Or I don't trust other people, maybe because of our differences, maybe because of past history. There's a lot of reasons not to trust, and not being clear about what's in it for me, and therefore I don't reach out. Why make the first move? It's too much effort. And I think people are so busy anyway and feeling so overloaded that it's easy not to try to really build that team in a way that's going to be its biggest self. And so we withhold, protect ourselves, protect our power, fear of being let down, fear of being hurt, fear of stuff that we bring from the past. And so there's a lot of reasons why we stay with the I and we don't go to a we. And so what we see is, in terms of the big we, and how do we really create that, is really, it's a major mindset shift. It's really about, as I said, we've moved from judging to joining. We recognize that we really do need other people. We can't do it alone. And I think for the complexity of what organizations have to face these days, nobody has all the answers. Not even the smartest person in the organization has all the answers. There's too many unknowns and unknowables. We are open. I mean, openness, curiosity, a willingness to engage. For many of us, I think in this field, that's part of what we bring. But that doesn't mean that everyone else shares that in terms of creating that big we. We're in a journey of discovery. We recognize that we all need to grow. So we don't think we have it all sewed up. We show up to partner. And I think, one of the things Fred and I, as we said, we've been working together now 37 years. And when part of the thing, I think we're the longest pair partners who are not married to each other, who have worked together all these years. And in the beginning, one of the things we agreed to was we had ground rules that said, unless I ate as kids, we were going to be able to work through conflict, work through our differences, work through whatever. And so there's never been anything that I fear is going to be like breaking up our partnership. We always know that we're here serving the best interest for each other. And there have been years where we had a 6-month fight. But we always knew that we would, he'd call me and I'd hear the fuss in his voice and I'd just hang up on him. But we all knew at the end that we were going to work through and really trusted that. And so we really show up to partner. And we strive to do our best work together. Really challenging each other makes us better. And so really when people challenge, it's taking it in the spirit of what can I learn? What is it that I'm missing? And, for me, as I said, I was an actor. We always look for the holes to see what's wrong, opposed to seeing how do I build on what somebody else has said. Understanding to create that big we really need skills and understand that we'll be stronger. And so it's how much energy am I willing to put into creating that teamwork, creating that creating that ability to really be stronger together. And so our last poll for us this evening, Fred will take to have you think about to what extent are you contributing your team to being a big we? You, Fred.
That's the question. And annotating is working, I hope. Yep, there it is. Okay.
It's working. Yep.
To what extent are you contributing to your team being a big we? Because, as we think about the world we're living in, it's all about we. It's all about we. As he's saying, our clients, we got to reduce the I's in this organization. This is for me. I'm doing it for me. I. That's what it was. A lot of what the Industrial Revolution was about. That's a lot of what silos are about. I. We're not going to get there with that, with this I's, a bunch of I's. We got to move to we. Every high performing team, every sports team, the woman I'm married to loves ice skating, watching the pairs. Somebody throws you up in the air. You want to say we, you don't want to say I. So how do we create those scenarios where we're in this together? It's not you and me. It's not me in the air and you on the ground. It's we going through this routine together. I love all those 8, 9s, and 10s. Yay.
And I'd be curious, Fred, about how much people in organizations, I think for many of us, this is part of what our work is. But I wonder if you ask these same questions of people in the organization, how much would they see themselves in these same numbers? My hunch is we're higher because of the work we do. I mean, this is in many ways kind of what we're here to do, is to really create those teams and support individuals to be their best selves. So I think that's one of the challenges as well. So
I think we're going to put you back in groups for 2 or 3 minutes, and not groups, in pairs, for 2 or 3 minutes, and just talk about the we part of it, the we that you're seeing or not seeing in organization or organization you're consulting to, or organization you've been involved in, and about big and how people are being big in organization, how they can be bigger, or what you can do to make the organization a land of giants where everybody is big. So Amadi, could you put us in pairs, please? And then we'll come back and wrap up in the next 12 minutes.
Welcome back,
That's
everybody.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back, Aaron. Hi. I haven't heard your voice yet, Aaron. You're going to have to speak up. Say something when we give some open time in a minute. We're counting on you. All right, thanks. Okay.
Yay.
We want to do a few things. We want to, because time is moving, we want to, if anything you want to put in chat coming out of that as something you thought about or something you're going to do, whatever, feel free to put that in chat. Judith and I have 7 critical mindsets. There's probably 3,429, but we're going to talk about 7 critical mindsets that we think are important these days. Then we're going to have some open time for 3 or 4 people to make some comments. And then we'll thank you. And then Marilyn will close us. So that's where we're going in the next few minutes. Well, I think that if we think about a word for this first part of this century, it's collaboration. It's collaboration. It's everybody in every organization saying, I can't do it alone. I need partners. I need other people. And we've always had that, but I think now it's more than ever. With so many unknowns and unknowables, the pandemic coming the way it did, I think working together and partnering together is critical. That's why diversity is important, right? We just can't have one point of view or one street corner, as we call it. We got to be able to see lots of things, lots of angles. That's why inclusion is important. People got to feel like they can bring their voice and be involved and that they're important. And therefore, when they're important, hopefully they'll give their thinking. So collaboration is important. You don't get collaboration without putting all that environmental stuff around it. Number 2, for high performance, constant changing of and pushing on what is critical to in times of transformation. That's some of what dialogical D is about. How do we create, we'll say that later again too, how do we create that new narrative? How do we create a new way of looking at things? Every clients call up and they say, I got this little problem and can you help us with that? And we do some diagnosis and say, your problem is off the screen. It's not a little problem. You got a lot of things you need to change and do different. And so what is going on? What do we need to push on? What do we need to change? What do we need to do to be a great organization? A lot of organizations that were around at the beginning of the century are not going to be around when we're even a third through this century. And they're not going to be around because they're not growing and developing and being big as an organization, as well as their people being big. Judith?
Yeah, so one of the things I think, even as we're trying to create a big team and be big with our teams and with each other, is really understanding that this is all temporary. Seeing our teams, our units and structures as temporary. And sometimes we fall in love with, because we love the team members or whatever, we don't want to change. And one of the things that we think is critical is we can't fall in love with our structures. And so really that flexibility, that ability to create big teams everywhere is an important part of the mindset in terms of where we are at this moment. The other thing is we really think about eliminating waste of people's energy interactions and waste in processes. And when we were doing some work in Merck, they were doing a lot of Lean Six Sigma work, which is really to eliminate waste in process. But what we became aware of is that there was a lot of waste in interactions. And so one of the things that we really found was that when we're small, or we see other people as small, or we see teams as small, that creates waste. We're not allowing everyone to be as big as. So we have the honest conversations we need to have. If we have the honest interactions, we eliminate that waste. And so being big enables us to eliminate that waste, and that waste in interactions as well as waste in our process. And so we think that's an important mindset to have, is that if I'm not telling you what I'm feeling, that's just waste, because then we have to go around the bush, and that's not a best use of our time and energy. Next slide.
Willing and able to change the organization narrative. This comes out of Dialogic OD, although many of us have talked about narratives for years, but it's really changing the story about the organization. Often the story about the organization in many organizations, not all, is something that limits people, or stops people, or talks about the dangers, or talks about the problems, or talks about watch out for that person, or don't say that in that room. And so how do we change the narrative that's right for the organization? Got to work with the mission, the vision, the strategy of the organization, but a narrative that's enabling, empowering, a narrative that respects and honors diversity, a narrative that says every person in this organization counts. If they don't count, why are they there? So they count. If they count, then we want all they have to give to the organization. So how do we create healthy, growthful, engaging, empowering narratives in our organization? Those are the organizations that are going to survive. The ones that don't have that, they're not going to be around in years from now, maybe even not a year from now. Seeking out differences and having an open mind that embraces differences. The jury's in on diversity. Diversity in a time of change, in a time of a lot of knowns and unknowables, in a time where the rapids are going faster and faster and faster, a time when it feels like work and life is a scavenger hunt, and you need a lot of different views and disciplines and ways of looking at things to have success. You got to have diversity. Diversity leads to diversity of differences we may have. It leads to diversity of thought. If we don't have diversity of thought in our organizations, we lose. And somehow and sometimes, and the best way to get diversity of thought is not have everybody look the same or act the same. And so we see diversity for a lot of reasons as critical in the world that we're in. And so how do we seek out differences in our organization? How we say, oh, you see that different than me, instead of saying you're wrong. Well, I say, how did you come to that conclusion? Or why do you see it that way? Or what can I learn from the way that you see it, that I don't see it? Nobody's got all the answers. You know, they used to talk about comets when they're going to come hit the earth. We'd know about them about 3 or 4 years in advance. Every once in a while, last week or so, we had this comet coming, and all of a sudden they didn't know about it until 2 weeks in advance. There are a lot of mysteries around us. Together, we're better able to solve them than separately.
So lastly, I think our goal about building partnerships and connections that create trust, mutual learning and inclusion to enable us all to be big. And I guess one of the things I just saw Donna had left in the chat is like being big when it's right. I guess our image, our hope is that it would always be right. One of the reasons why we wrote Interaction Safe Enough to Soar about interaction safety is we want to live in a world where everyone can be big. We want to create organizations where everyone can be their best selves, where people don't have to be small, where that woman that Tina mentioned doesn't have to hold a breath, you know, not be able to speak up. And so I think the real image, the vision that we have and why Be Big is so important to us is, I don't want a world where people can't bring themselves, where they can't be who they are, where we can't speak our mind or speak our voice and be heard and listened to and have and be empowered and be able to have choices and decision making. Now that may be a nirvana, but I think it's a hope for each of us and to create that as much as we can. So we want those partnerships and connections to really create that trust, because we know that when we have trust, we would give each other the benefit of the doubt, and we will really be able to soar in many, many ways. So that's our kind of 7 critical mindsets.
Yeah. Thanks, Judith. So we have time to hear from about 4 people, and then Marilyn will wrap us up. Aaron, would you go first? I had asked Aaron previously.
Yeah, you know, I was just typing a comment in the area here, because I think Kate made a really interesting comment as not like big is a very American language, and I'm Canadian. And I was relating to her on that, and I was typing, as you just called me to speak, to say, I'm always thinking about being a better person, but I don't think that necessarily relates to big. Like that has a different connotation to me. And so it's not to get away from everything you've said is great. It's just, for me, it's just improving self, and that makes a better community. So anyways, I just wanted to say that.
I like that.
Thanks for asking me to speak today. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's improving self and bringing my best self to the situation. So when we say big, it's both combinations of that. I'm working on myself, I'm growing myself, and I'm bringing my best self to the table. So that's a whole lot of words. That's why we just say be big.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's also resonating, and I'm Canadian. I just put in maybe like showing up is coming up for me as sort of a Canadian translation to that. You know, how are we showing up?
And I like that. I like that a lot.
And I just wanted to comment with throughout this whole conversation, this is like red thread of flexibility. I'm just in all of your mindsets and in the beginning, this theme of flexibility, radical flexibility that's needed in this new way of working and living that you're talking about.
I love that. Thanks. Radical flexibility.
It's great.
Couple more people and then we'll wrap up. Stop.
Hi, I wanted to add the we. For me, what's really touching me here is it's not about, you know, one way you can be big or want to be big. It's really we can be big. Right. Because if it's only about, you know, you're a big person with a big life. If I view you that way, it does shift the paradigm. or if I'm in, well, I'm a big person with a big life, but it's the we. And so that's what I retain. And that's
Amen.
really amazing because I
Right on,
thank you. Mhm.
right on. It is all about we.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move unless somebody else has something quick they want to say.
Mm.
Okay, so thank you. This has been wonderful. Appreciate all the comments and all the things in chat. And just mainly I appreciate seeing everybody's faces. So thank you for that and the energy that we all represent. And again, I just want to remind us, we need each other and we need other kindred spirits to change this world, but this world is ready for change. And we have a lot that we can bring to it. And I want us all to be big as we bring that change to it. So thank you. And don't forget the workshops, the labs that we're doing, and hopefully many of you will come to them. We're gonna have a blast. And Judith and then Marilyn.
Come hang out with us. It'll be great. We'll have a great time. What the hell? Okay, last thing. Daring to do our best work together. If I bring my full self and step up, step out and be bold, if I take off my blinders and really see you. And if you do the same, together we can do our best work and be big, bigger than anyone could imagine. It starts with me daring to believe I matter, getting out of my comfort zone and having the courage to step up, step out, and stand tall. Being willing to show up fully, giving my best, being my big self so I can do my best work, but that's not enough. I then must be daring enough to see you. I must take off my blinders, reach out and engage you and support you in your journey as an individual so that you can do your best and be your best self. But that's still not enough because this just creates the possibility of we. Me and you need to be daring enough to see each other as big and to partner in ways to do our best work together. Marilyn, to you.
Hi, everyone. So this is Marilyn. I'm with the Center for Human Relations and Community Studies. I want to thank everybody tonight for joining us. I feel it was very stimulating for all of us. We really appreciate your participation and hope you enjoyed the presentation. On behalf of the center, I'd like to thank Fred and Judith. We're really grateful to have them here with us. And we're really excited to be partnering with them to offer these upcoming workshops in July. So please visit our website, concordia.ca/CHRCS for more information on those workshops, as well as other upcoming center webinars. I will be sending a follow-up email with the slides that were presented tonight, as well as the link for the recording of this presentation. So once again, thank you all so much. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Be safe.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Look forward to seeing you again.
Take good care.
Thank you so much, everyone.